Good morning. The title of the talk today is For the Love of God. And I found this a little interesting because when I grew up in Ohio, whenever somebody was frustrated about something, they'd say, "Oh, for the love of Pete." Or, "For Pete's sake." You know, I checked this out. I don't know why that rang that bell in me, so I went to Google and I put in, "For the love of Pete," and there it was. It said, it even showed an example. "For the love of Pete, can we just pick a restaurant and stop searching? I'm hungry." Frustration. Well, Google said these were euphemisms for the phrases "for the love of God" or "for God's sake." But at the time, to use the word God in a sentence like that or a phrase like that was considered blasphemous. And so Pete became the substitute. It said in Google that it might be a reference to the Catholics' St. Pete, standing at the garden at the gate of heaven. And I connected with that because I grew up Catholic, and I went, "Oh yeah, St. Pete, he was pretty cool." But yet this morning, what I want to do is give up Pete and frustration and focus on the love of God. There's this immensely amazing presence, everywhere present, full of love when we tap into it, when we allow it to enter every cell of our being. God is in all, through all, as all. So today I have many things to be grateful for, and it's all part of this world created by God. So I have a story to share that you might find interesting, and a couple of other things that were just on my mind this week. You may remember longtime members Harry and Frances Bliley. They're still members, but they moved into a retirement home many years ago, maybe 8 years ago, maybe, in Grass Valley to be closer to their daughter, Nancy. Well, on Friday, I got a call from Nancy. She was very concerned about how frail her parents have become, and they lately seem to be focused more on what happens when the time comes. They're both 95 years old, and they've been married 71 years. What a relationship. But Nancy says her mom gets on these rants lately and just will not let go. When the time comes, who's going to take care of Harry? Who's going to do this? Who's going to do that? And she said, I can't get her to stop. And it's very upsetting. Well, I love how synchronicity works in my life. And this past few weeks, I'm teaching Thomas Troward, the Edinburgh Lectures. And I'm sure many of you have taken that and just love Thomas Troward or not. But a gentleman by the name of Harry Gaze was a friend of Troward's. And he wrote about his recollections of Troward, and I have that book. And some of the experiences he had with Troward are just so darn cute. So I was telling Nancy about this. I said, let me share a story from Thomas Troward, because I know your parents have taken the class on Edinburgh Lectures. Every so often, Troward's wife would go into a rant. And she would go on. Now, this is like 1910. She would go on and on and on. And Troward got so frustrated with it. And finally, one day, he looked her straight in the eye and said, "Cock-a-doodle-doo." And she just froze. And they fell together laughing. Well, that got Nancy laughing so hard, she was about to cry. I'm laughing, she's laughing. So she said, man, I'm going to try that with Mom and see how that works. And I said, just remind her, it's Thomas Troward, one of her favorite New Thought teachers, maybe, I don't know. But anyway, she felt a lot better. I first met Harry and Frances when I moved to Anderson to become the manager of wood fiber at the big power plant there. And my job was to purchase waste wood from sawmills, the bark, the chips, the sawdust, and they turn that into electricity. Well, P&M Cedar was one of my first customers, or suppliers, and Harry was the manager of selling these waste products. We got along really well. I mean, who couldn't like Harry? But, when it came to negotiating a price, we were pretty tough nuts to crack, both of us. Because every quarter we would meet, and I would have to prove to him what the market was doing, how much hog fuel was being produced, how much was being stockpiled, how many wood chips were there, were they being used in pulp and paper, what was the sawdust being used for, how much of it was there, how many power plants, there were 9 at the time in Northern California, how many were running? So we had all these parameters, and from all this, I'd say, so I think the price should be this. And we'd wrangle about it, and we'd just argue about it, but at some point, we would agree, and we would shake hands and smile and see you next quarter. After about 2 years of being here, I met some people from the Reading Church of Religious Science, which is the previous name of this group. And they invited me to attend, and at the time, it was at what's now the La Quinta Inn on Hilltop Drive, meeting there. And the first time I walked into Sunday service, there's Harry. And I went, oh my gosh. He said, meet my wife, Frances. They invited me to dinner. I mean, wanted to get to know me more personally. And what I found is that it's so easy to become an admirer of them because they walk the talk. They epitomize living the principles of science mind. They still, even today, have immense faith in the world, immense love for family and friends and for each other. So Friday afternoon, I called them. And I said, how are you two doing? Because they get on the speakerphone so they can both talk. Frances said, Harry continues to go to every lecture or class offered there at the retirement center. He takes daily walks. He goes to the exercise room. And then he comes home and watches sports on TV. Frances said, I have my own TV. She likes her own shows. And she says, but Mary, I've been following politics and it's driving me a bit crazy. I'm listening, and she said, but I know it's all right action. As long as I have great faith, I know it's working itself out. And I said, Frances, I'm going to share that. I've got to share that because that's pure metaphysics. It's what we learned from Ernest Holmes, Dear Emma, Thomas Troward, and the great and the wise New Thought philosophers that now, for me, include Frances. She said, since they've moved there, the management has changed over the years, sometimes good, sometimes bad. And many of the residents come and go because it's a retirement home. And like she told everybody when she got there, they'd say, how long do you expect to be here? And Frances would say, I'm a lifer. Cracked me up. So she said, it's not always been easy, and it's amazing to know it's okay. No matter how things are with these people around here, I'm loving them all. Loving them all. I'm sharing this because it's possible for all of us to do that. Harry and Frances see the love of God in everyone. Now, they have 2 daughters. One is Nancy. And Nancy was a doctor, and she's now retired. And the other daughter is Mary, who was, the best way to put it, a nomadic artist, a traveler. From day one, Mary was challenging. Everything had to be her way. Nothing Mom and Dad did was right. But she became an amazing artist and has a great personality, but she was meant to travel the world, which she did, never staying in one place very long. She was living on the little money that she made from her art. And there were months at a time that Harry and Frances had no idea where she was. So it was pretty painful and heartbreaking for them. Mary was not going to be Nancy like a doctor. Mary was not going to be like them. Mary was her own unique person. Every once in a while, every couple years maybe, Mary would come home and say, I'm home to stay. That didn't last. There would come that day, she'd be packing up her truck, putting her dog in the front seat, and she was off once again. So when I asked Frances Friday about Mary, at this time she just lit up. She was so excited. You could just hear it in her voice. Her heart was just busting with joy. She said, you remember Mary, that when Mary was growing up, how rebellious she was. And the more rebellious she was, the more Harry and I loved on her. And now, Frances said, I'm able to leave this earth in peace because Mary has found her place where she's truly happy. Of course, I'm ready. Where is that? She's living in the Arizona desert where she bought a little house on a few acres. She only has solar power, and every week she has to drive to town to buy water for a penny a gallon. Frances thought that was amazing. It is amazing. So she buys this water and comes home and waters her plants, puts out water for the animals, and she's ecstatically happy. Every morning she gets up to walk around the property, and she is in awe at the colors of the flowers, the plants, the bugs. She's just discovering new bugs all the time. Amazing sunrises and sunsets. Frances said she found the pace of life that works for her. Have to be happy about that. Now she calls, and Frances said they talked for over an hour about the past, and Mary is realizing how it really was, how loving her parents were, how beautiful a family they were. And she's so grateful for Mom and Dad. That's why Frances said, I can now leave this earth knowing she's okay. So this shows the power of love and the power of patience, acceptance, and faith. Frances said it was so hard to go through that heartbreak because Mary was never going to be like them. But now they love her even more. She held to her own identity. So I thought you'd like to hear that good news. Yeah. And I have some other things I want to talk about. And right now, it's the Science of Mind as an organization. I put my hat in the ring to be on the board of trustees of the organization. So that'll be interesting. Well, my husband's excited because he thinks it's going to take me off the ethics committee, which it will, which takes up way too much of his time, in his opinion. But one of the exciting things is the monthly Science of Mind magazine. They're giving topics every month, and they're doing the whole magazine on the topics. So if you want to dive deeper in, for the love of Pete, not really, but for the love of God, I encourage you. This month, it's about love, obviously. It's February. And Eugene Holden does personal affirmations on one page in this magazine every month. And I want to read what he wrote. I am the love of God. Every word I speak is anchored in love. Every act is an act of love for the highest good of all. I see only perfection, beauty, and peace. I stand as the light of love. I surrender to the power that love is as me. I open my heart to see all colors of love. I am love in action. Might be want to be a page in this book that you want to put on your bathroom mirror. I am love in action. There's an article in there by Molly Brown where she addresses what she calls the searing energy of reactivity in this country right now to anyone and anything, and the subsequent negative experiences that continue to perpetuate this discord. That's incredibly insightful to me, just the way she put those words together. The searing energy of reactivity and the negative experiences that are perpetuated by that, cause and effect. The only way to the other side of this, she writes, is through unconditional love and finding the strength and the courage to see all of life as created by the love of God. February is also Black History Month, and there are several articles in here about the colors of love. And on the front page, they have put 4 really beautiful African-American ministers and leaders in the organization, and they each have their own article in here, and I found them incredibly heartwarming. 2 years ago, the organization formed the Committee of Diversity and Inclusion, and when I went through an interview the other night about being a candidate to be on this leadership council, that was the first thing they asked me. Are we doing enough on diversity and inclusion in this organization? It's a real major focus, and it's appropriate. It's so appropriate. So the Diversity Council and this magazine are just giving us a lot of new ways to think about things, honoring the oneness of us all. I even started reading their book recommendations. And I come from Ohio. I attended a Catholic school that had 700 students, of which only 2 were African American. I live in Redding, California, here in Shasta County. Its population's 80% white, 10% Hispanic, 3% Asian, 3% Native American, and 1% African American. So for me, I don't often think about it. I don't think about racism. I don't think about this, but it's alive in the community in a greater way. It's alive. So I'm grateful CSL has chosen that focus so that we can begin to see unity with all people. Even if it hasn't been on our radar up until now, it will be. It will be. Like I said, I've been on the ethics committee. I've been co-chair for several years. And the number of members on our committee, we have 10 committee members, 3 persons to an investigation. And the number of people on our committee have been pretty consistently white. Not totally, but 1 out of 10 it's not a, I wouldn't call it balanced. But this year we're thinking about it because of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. We're thinking about it. We decided we needed to add 3 more people to the committee. And people don't just jump out at us and say, I want to be on the ethics committee. We talk to them and convince them how valuable it is to be on the ethics committee. And so we decided to go looking for people of color. So we spent a few weeks talking to ministers all over the country, and we found the right people. And they're beautiful African-American, 2 men and a woman. And we're just so thrilled to bring them onto the committee. So we're very, very happy about that. The ladies on the cover of this magazine, one is Tracy Brown. She's not a minister, she's a practitioner, and yet she's the chair of the Leadership Council. I find it very interesting, very powerful woman. And she shares in here that the principles of science of mind call her to the highest standard of personal responsibility. She said, instead of being a victim or making other people villains, for the love of God, I use the principles to ground myself in the good that is possible for me and the world. Very powerful woman. Sometimes people come in here and they like us, but they don't have a way to get here. And people will say, well, if you could just pick me up every Sunday, and then if you could do this for me and you could do that for me. And I always have to say, we're a philosophy that believes in personal responsibility. And we will help pray with you on this, that develops more in you. The other lady, Crystal Davis, is a laity leader. She's not a minister. She has a consulting business. And she said the principles are a daily routine that she goes through reading all the principles, knowing that that is the situation in every client she meets. They're all an expression of God. Reverend Andrea Earle, she's the founding minister of the Heart and Soul Center of Light in Oakland. A very big church. She experienced transformation when she found the science of mind. And I love how she says this. The principles inspire her toward her greatest yet to be. Her greatest yet to be. Knowing her life is unfolding perfectly as she manifests the life she desires. Reverend Cynthia James has a virtual ministry online, and she uses the principles every day, knowing nothing opposes God, so there's nothing that can oppose my desires and dreams. Nothing can oppose my desires and dreams. It made me think of the big story this week, the unfortunate death of NBA star Kobe Bryant, his daughter, and others that were killed in that horrible helicopter crash. I've been reading every article that comes out about him because he is one of the most highest respected basketball players in the NBA, probably in the world. In retirement, he mentored many, many athletes. He was called a one-man consulting shop. He gave so much of himself to others because they had dreams and desires just as he had, and he wanted to encourage them. It can be, it can be. So the world admires him greatly for that, as well as his talent in playing basketball. But today is the day, Super Bowl Sunday. I'm very excited. I love Super Bowl. I love football. But dreams and desires are alive in the Super Bowl today. Oh boy. The 49ers have dreams and desires. They've come back so strong. They're very excited. And the Kansas City Chiefs just want to win one Super Bowl. You know, there's nothing opposing their dreams and desires, so we'll see which team embodies it the best, you know. When it's over, we'll see what happens. It would be hilarious if it was a tie. Who knows? One of the things I'm fascinated about is the Chiefs quarterback, Patrick Mahomes. I don't know if you've watched any of his work. Young kid, oh my God. He breaks every convention on how to be a quarterback. He throws with his left hand when he's right-handed. He throws behind him, and people catch it. He's off the ground, and he does the pass this way, and when he's looking this way, and he passes that way, often with his other hand. The guy's amazing. And so I'm looking forward to watching that. He even brings basketball moves to the football field. So if you haven't watched Patrick, you might just tune in a little bit this afternoon. It'll be very inspiring for sure. You know, I've read that these super athletes do a lot of visioning. They do muscle memory. They work the muscles the same way to get it ingrained in them, how to do what they do. They already just see their desire as accomplished. They believe they've already achieved their goal. We know how powerful that is. It works the same for us. So for Pete's sake, give up negativity. Replace it with love. And for the love of Pete, give up judgment. Only love will ever heal the wounds of the world. And for the love of God, we believe that is so. And let me do a prayer on that, because we know, and so it is. Oh, what a great day. Because we know it's only one. There's this one energy that is what we call God. And in this field of energy, everything has been created in the background energy of the universe, which is love. At any moment, at any time, no matter where we are, we can go into our heart and bring up something filled with love. This week, it's the love of Harry and Frances. Great inspirations. So as we do that, we're spreading more love around the world. We're giving love to everyone we see when we smile. It's the gift that keeps on giving. So I celebrate February, Valentine's Day, Black History Month, the many colors of love in the world, and I celebrate this philosophy that guides us so well in experiencing our dreams, in finding new desires, and finding new ways to live this philosophy based in love. In tremendous gratitude, I release any worry or concern, because for Pete's sakes, it's worth it to be living in love And so it is. Thank you.